incredibly guilty because I had this light that I wasn't able to fully give to somebody else, but she saw it.
But it's a kind of a two-way street, isn't it? I mean, you can't do everything
But grace
for,
isn't.
well,
And that's-
no, it isn't, and grace with God isn't, but I mean, I'm talking human way. She extended her hand to this gal all through her growing up years, and she didn't know how to grasp it, and you didn't know what else to do, so,
I
yeah.
told her one time when she hit me that Jesus said to turn the other cheek, so I did. And then she hit me on the other side.
How many years did this go on?
She ruined every birthday party I ever had, because I invited her every year.
You did anyway? That's amazing.
I would have stopped inviting her.
I know, that's amazing.
But
You know,
We just
You're
kept
great.
trying.
I think that
That is
My
grace.
family,
That is
my
grace.
family
That is
kept
grace.
trying to help, not just me. I
Yeah.
can't take the credit for all
Yeah.
that, but
You know,
I was a
Jesus,
young kid, I just kept trying to.
Jesus told us to be fishers of men. And a fisherman doesn't get out in the boat and then leap into the water and grab the fish.
Yeah.
What does the fisherman do?
Attracts
waits.
the big
Correct, yeah.
He waits, and then when the fish comes, then he gets it. And I think,
And he doesn't keep all the fish.
it doesn't keep all the fish either, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You know, I've read some of the early, the historical writings that the Romans wrote in the early, from the time of the early church. And they, you know, they didn't, some of the Roman historians wrote about the Christian church, and they weren't Christian themselves, and they didn't intend to be, but over and over and over until it becomes monotonous, they say, "Good night, how these Christians love each other,"
Mm.
and I think that's the thing that draws people. Commandments don't draw people, rules don't draw people, but love draws people.
Mhm.
And a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
feeling welcome and
Being part of.
So.
And yet I've heard, because I have some friends who are quite conservative in their faith, you know, if you're warm, will spit you out. You know, you get those kinds of things. You have to be all in or you're, you know what I mean?
Okay, if you're not.
And I never have, I guess I let their rule and Bible verse knowledge picking kind of push me down, and I never quite know how to respond to that. So I just.
Well, how did Jesus respond to those people? The only time that Jesus ever got mad was when he was talking to priests and Pharisees.
Yeah.
People who are really rigid in their faith. That's the only time we see Jesus speaking harshly, was to people who are too rigid, too certain, you know, you either got to be in or out. You know, that was.
Yeah,
putting their way in front of God, before God's way.
Yeah.
all their rules.
Yeah.
Could you say to them, you know, thank you, I appreciate your input and you know, I don't question what you say, but.
But you're
I
kind
have
of
my
wacky.
own- I have- What'd you say?
You're kind of wacky.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
say to them, I respect what you believe and how you feel and how you worship, and I wish you would respect how I feel and how I worship.
Right.
We believe in the same Lord. And just let it
Well,
go.
that's actually the tie that keeps us together, is that we
Your
know
belief.
that we believe in the same Lord. So let's just say it this way, we do not talk politics.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well, Lowell can, because he can kind of, but I'm kind of that, I just kind of avoid it. But, you know, we do come back to what we agree on, which is Christ's teaching. And because sometimes, you know, even the things about, there's a lot of love in the New Testament. And I've even heard just kind of in a casual passing of conversation, something about, well, yeah, you know how it is, you just love them and everything's okay.
Hmm.
In other words, you know, it's just an excuse to do whatever you want.
Right, right. You
Is
gotta
the
have
whole
rules, yeah.
interpretation. Yeah, they're very driven by rules.
But even
And
today-
I can't really fight that belief, you know, it's just gonna be different than what I believe, but.
But even today in the Romans verse,
it felt like an invitation to act the way, to respond to people with who aren't treating you with the same love and respect.
Mhm.
It felt like an invitation to show your faith. It felt like an invitation to do, it was Romans 9, right?
That was 12.
It
12,
just felt-
9, yeah.
You have your bulletin underneath your
Oh,
sheet.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
faster. But it felt like an invitation, I kept looking back at it, and I felt like it, let love be genuine and hate what is evil, and then do not lag in zeal, be, I don't know what that word, ardent in spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer. I mean, all this feels like, extend hospitality, bless those who persecute you. All of this is an opportunity and an invitation to demonstrate my faith, kind of like what you had said earlier about people will know I'm different when I let my faith lead my decision-making and the way I respond to people in the world. And to me, that was really powerful today. I just kept looking at this going, this is an invitation to show my faith, to let that light be there and let people see it.
Yeah,
You know, you might try to knock me down, but
That's what you did with your neighborhood
Yeah.
girl.
Yep. yeah,
It says hate what is evil, not hate who is evil.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
good point, good.
yeah.
Do you think all the war in the Bible, I mean, God was kind of a part of some of that, wasn't he? Or not really?
I think that people believed that God wanted them to do a lot of things
Okay.
that he hadn't intended.
Like even David and Goliath, like we learned that from when we were kids.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that seems like he was condoning that he went out and killed Goliath.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I think the Israelites used God as an excuse for a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
That God was going,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we still do. I
We
mean,
still do that for.
You know,
Mhm.
and have you ever seen the movie or read the book Hawaii about the missionaries that went to Hawaii and how they devastated the culture?
Yeah,
You know, and in the early in the 1800s, that happened. I mean, and we did that in the name of Jesus Christ. And look at the fighting in Ireland, the Catholics and the Protestants, you know, and in the Middle
Even-
East. People use religion
as
as a
a tool.
reason.
as a hammer.
God, or even last night, yeah, I've studied martial arts for 25 years, and so I enjoy watching the mixed martial arts fighting on TV. And it was on last night. And the number of, they always interview the winners after they win. And it's amazing, the number of people, they said it last night too, the number of people who, how did you feel, did you, the announcer goes, did your strategy work, or or was there something else that happened? And they always say, well, first, I'd like to thank God for helping me win, And I can just see God up there saying, don't say my name, don't say my name, don't say my name. You said it.
by the grace of God.
Here I go.
Yeah.
And,
How about at football games when they do a touchdown and they kneel at the.
yeah, like God helped them do that, yeah.
Yeah. And why doesn't he
I think
help
God
the other
probably
guy?
has more important things to think about.
Yeah.
But it also could be a way of saying thank you for the skill that you've given me, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
But
That's right.
Yeah,
And I
that's,
think,
that's.
sometimes I think that is,
Mhm.
and it doesn't come
For
out
some,
like that,
no,
but
but
for
that's what
some
I do.
people, I think they're,
It's
I mean,
what
you
they
hear that
were
maybe
thinking.
sometimes, and maybe like the Olympics or something, somebody who's just understanding, like, maybe that they didn't do this by themselves.
Did you ever see do you remember when it was really common in football games for somebody to hold up John 3:16 signs behind the thing, behind the goalposts or something? The second commandment, here I go talking about commandments again. The second commandment is thou shalt not take the name of the Lord God in vain. What the Hebrew version of that is actually, don't take God's name lightly. And I wonder if so much of what Christians do today is take God's name lightly. By holding up John 3:16 signs and thanking God after you beat somebody to a bloody pulp in a
Yeah.
mixed martial arts fight, yeah. Anyway, let's do one more. We may have to finish this next month.
Okay.
It's okay, we're not going anywhere.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So we were at number 5. So people wanted a king rather than being led by God. Number 6, King David's wars, and we talked about King David, and he was pretty much fought wars constantly throughout his.
Nobody else is
What-
gonna name their, she said a jerk.
A jerk.
Nobody's gonna name their kids
A
David
royal-
Yes.
anymore.
And you know, that's always my favorite name.
Oh.
Love it.
That's my middle name. Yeah.
Oh.
My husband has a brother named David, so we never have to run anything like
There we go.
And if you would like to read that again, that's in 1st and 2nd Samuel. Number 7, King Solomon's temple. Solomon built. David said in 2 Samuel chapter 7. Let me start over. In 2 Samuel, too many names right in a row there. In 2 Samuel chapter 7, David says, "God, I'd like to build you a temple." God says, "Don't really want one. I don't want to be locked up in that place. I like moving among my people." And the next thing you know, turn around, Solomon's building one. And the book of 1 Kings goes into quite a bit of detail on how extravagant the temple is.
May I interject something here? Did anybody see that Jewish program that was on TV? I was on last Sunday morning. I came home from church and my husband accidentally saw a blurb about it. He said, "Isn't this what you wanted to watch Friday night?" And it wasn't on because of the hockey playoffs. So I watched it, and basically it's produced by a Jewish organization, and it's about the 4 signs. I don't know if it calls it the end, but the 4 signs of whatever. And one of them is the temple, rebuilding the temple. And they're talking about, and when I went on a trip a few years ago to Jerusalem, and that was one of the things our guide said as well, how it's a real big dilemma now because the Jews want to build a temple where the Dome of the Rock is. Okay, and there's, so then they would have their temple, and I'm thinking, that's a pretty big spot. Why couldn't all 3 of us build something there and everybody be happy,
Yeah.
You're
that would
too
be simple.
realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, why should it
That just
be,
makes sense,
Right,
Phyllis.
yeah.
What are you thinking?
And I think God was, when Jesus said, we are the temple.
Right,
Yeah.
but
We don't need a
Paul said
building.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
But if the Jewish people are still practicing
Yeah,
the
they're
Jewish
big.
ways, there's still
They still want the temple
continuing
there,
that.
Mhm,
because they don't believe, have the New Testament as part of their lens
mhm.
and their belief.
So time for one more here. The number 8. The country splits into 2. So you may recall Solomon was such a brutal king that the people kind of revolted, particularly the people from the north who are getting pretty getting the brunt of the taxes. So
They were living in poverty.
because they had to support Solomon. And so if you jump forward to the next book, 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 12. So after Solomon died, Solomon's son Rehoboam took over, and all these people led by Jeroboam. Okay, I know those are really close names here. So Rehoboam was king. People mostly from the north, led by Jeroboam, came to Rehoboam and said, "You got to reduce the taxes. You got to reduce the burden. You got to help us." So, chapter 12. Somebody want to read, or a couple people, 3 to 11.
The people of the northern tribe sent for him, and then they all went together to Rehoboam and said to him, "Your father Solomon treated us harshly and placed heavy burdens on us. If you make these burdens lighter and make life easier for us, we will be your loyal subjects. Come back in 3 days, and I will give you my answer," he replied. So they left. King Rehoboam consulted the older men who had served as his father Solomon's advisors. "What answer do you advise me to give these people?" he asked. Somebody want to continue? I'll keep going.
Where are you, at 8?
I'm at 7.
Oh, okay, I'll do a little few. They replied, "If today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants." But Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. He asked them, "What is your advice? How should we answer these people who say to me, 'Lighten the yoke your father put on us'?" The young men who had grown up with him replied, "Tell these people who have said to you, 'Your father had put a heavy yoke on us, but make our yoke lighter.' Tell them, 'My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father laid on you a heavy yoke. I will make it even heavier. My father scorned you with whips. I will scorn you with the scorpions.'"
Okay, so he got some brilliant advice at first, which was be a servant to these people, and they will serve you. But he didn't listen. He listened to his buddies, who said, "My little finger is thicker than my father's waist." In other words, I'm tougher than my father. "My father laid on you a heavy yoke. I will make it heavier. My father scourged you with whips," and he did. There was a lot of forced slavery. It says, "I will scourge you with scorpions." A scorpion was a whip that had many lashes, and it had little pieces of metal on it.
The end. Yeah.
And so you can imagine that didn't go over very well. And so that's when the kingdom split into two parts. And that continue, or it tells that story for the rest of the chapter there. Down in verse 20, only the tribe of Judah remained loyal to the house of David. So, in other words, one tribe, Judah, was in the south, and then all the other 10 tribes were in the north, and that they became Israel. So there's two separate countries. So.
And the Levites were mixed in too, because they were.
Yeah, most of the Levites were in the south because that's where Jerusalem was. One of the problems that the north had is in verse 31 of chapter 2. Jeroboam built shrines on high places. This, by the way, is written by the priests. Jeroboam built shrines on high places and appointed priests from all sorts of people, even though they weren't Levites. Okay. And down at chapter 13, the last verse of chapter 13, again, this is written by priests. Even after Jeroboam did not change his evil ways, but once more appointed priests for the high places from all sorts of people. Anyone who wanted to become a priest, he consecrated for the high places. This was the sin that led to its downfall and its destruction from the face of the earth. Okay, so the priests had the mentality of
You can only worship in Jerusalem.
can only worship in Jerusalem, and only Levites can be in the priest, and that's why everybody was destroyed. The prophets said, "Oh, don't be silly. It's because you were unfaithful." You know, so, questions?
So, Rehoboam is the king, and Jeroboam is who again?
Jeroboam was just a worker in
Okay.
Solomon's,
He was the guy who
He was
killed a bunch of
general or
people,
something,
right?
wasn't he?
Was he the general that killed a bunch of people?
no, that was somebody else. He was one of the construction foremen, but so Jeroboam was a construction foreman in Solomon's stuff, but he became kind of a leader of the people, and then they made him king after they split.
If he was a construction foreman, he's probably one of those people with the whips, wasn't he?
But he was, yeah. Good point.
But yet he knew that he could get more work out of them if he wasn't so cruel and,
So maybe he was one of the nice ones that the people
Yeah.
listened to. So next month on July, what is it, 7th, 11th? When do we meet? Whenever, next time we meet.
Yeah.
July 12th.
July 12th, okay, that wasn't even close. On July 12th, then we'll pick up here. We'll talk about when Israel was destroyed, then we'll talk about the prophets, we'll talk about the Babylonian exile, the return, the intertestamental period, and then we'll talk about the first, we'll talk about the book of Mark, and we'll talk through first chapter or so of the book of Mark, and possibly the first chapter of the book of, or first part of the book of Matthew, to kind of see how some of these threads continue into the New Testament. So, okay, see you next week. Let's or next month. Let's close with